Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Riggins. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. All right. We are on episode 160 of the podcast. Today is Friday, August the 9th, 2024. Looking at the agenda for today, we're going to be taking a quote from Mahan Khalsa on his concept of green, yellow, and red lights. This is specific to consultation sales, but you can use this at any time. And then, of course, our business strategy this month is on transformational leadership. We're going to be doing a review. When does transformational leadership apply? Examples in action. I'll be bringing you different companies. We can talk about that. Common implementation areas and steps, and finally, a summary. Looking at our quote from Mahan Khalsa, there's a pattern that he gives when you're going through sales and something isn't quite right. It's what he calls a yellow light. You're not really on the path to moving forward, and you haven't come completely to a stop. But the idea of the yellow light is to either give us an opportunity to turn it green and move the sale forward, or turn it red and stop the sale right where it is. And sometimes that is the best thing to do. So what he said is, if we feel it, hear it, or see it, whatever that might be, find a way to say it tactfully. And his three-part response works like this. He said, number one, state the obvious, such as, I have a concern, I'm confused, or I think we may have a problem. The second part is to articulate the concern, state the confusion, or state the nature of the problem. What is really driving this that's making it a problem? And then simply ask the client, so what do you think we should do? Or you can ask them, if you're starting to lean a little more towards the red light concept, you can say, does that mean we should end this conversation? In both cases, we're putting into the client's position the ability to move forward or the ability to stop. And both of those are equitable choices when we're going through a sales process. So this was something that I wanted to bring. It's not a direct quote per se, but it's from some of the great training that he had done, some of the audio that I had encountered over the years. And I wanted to bring this because as we're going through sales, we're going to encounter situations like this. So it's good to have a formula, state the obvious, articulate the concern, ask the client. Digging into our business strategies, transformational leadership inspires and motivates teams to achieve extraordinary outcomes by fostering innovation, embracing change, and aligning personal and organizational goals. So that's kind of a high-level view of transformational leadership. There are a lot of types of things that happen in the world that are transformational. We do a lot of coaching. In fact, the person that I'm going to be interviewing in the next couple of weeks is going to be talking about her journey in transformational coaching. In looking at transformational leadership from the lens of when does it work best, there are a lot of different types of companies that are out there, but we're going to kind of hit some high points here. First of all, startups and tech companies. The need for innovation and rapid change is high, and they want to encourage creative problem solving and flexibility among the team. In educational institutions, it's fostering a culture of continuous learning and development, along with supporting teachers and staff in implementing new teaching methods. Among nonprofit organizations, it's the alignment of the team around a shared mission and values, which we understand this is very common all the way through transformational leadership. And we also want to motivate the staff and volunteers through a sense of purpose. But the fourth one that it works really well in is any corporate enterprise or even just a small business undergoing major changes. Now, generally, we're talking about mergers, acquisitions, and restructuring, But the goal is building a strong, cohesive culture around the company to make the transformation a viable thing for everybody. Looking at some examples in action, I have 3 specific ones that we're going to be bringing to the table today. And these are going to be large companies, but I think you'll really understand the underlying aspect of transformation in all 3 of them. Looking at International Business Machines, because that's their name, their structure, they wanted to move beyond that. So they wanted to shift their focus from hardware to software. And they wanted to implement services under leadership changes. That's that whole managed service provider concept. They invested heavily in emerging technologies like AI and cloud computing, which at that time were both still very new as concepts. And they really wanted to reinvent the company culture to be more agile and innovative. Now, when we get to next month, we're going to be talking about agile leadership. So this is probably going to be one of the case studies we're going to want to look at. Now, the impact of that major shift, and it occurred starting in about 1990 to 95, somewhere along in there, they began this move. And they transformed from a traditional tech hardware company into a leading provider of AI and cloud solutions. They increased their market share and their profitability as a result of doing that. Now, that was quite a few years back. And I looked at what is going on today here in 2024. They're now working further along the line on quantum computing and AI set to new industry standards. And they are now a key player in addressing future technological challenges. It's a natural shift for them that they've transformed along the way from one thing to something else and then gone past it. The second company I want to look at is Adobe. Now, very much like IBM, Adobe had a very set structure that they dealt with. You would buy a package. It was traditional softwares that were being bought, and every new version you had to go get a different one. They were one of the first ones to move from a perpetual license software model to a subscription-based service with their Adobe Creative Cloud. Now, they wanted to focus on customer-centric strategies. They wanted to be able to deploy regular updates and new features based on the user feedback. And that's more of that agile mindset, but it's part of the transformation that went with everything they were doing. Now, going to a subscription model resulted in recurring revenue streams, increased customer loyalty, and a significant rise in market value. Now, I've noticed this year a change in how Adobe works because I do use a lot of Adobe software, not just to make my podcasts and everything, but just to make all my presentations and everything look really nice. And my experience has been that they've taken more of a more hands-off approach to some of their flagship programs like Adobe Acrobat, where before, if you had the full-blown software package and you wanted to go to the Adobe Reader version, you had to download a new package. And then towards the end of last year to early this year, they changed that. So now if you just have Adobe Acrobat and you don't try to use all of the Premiere, the Pro features, then you can generally go with a single software package and just cancel your software subscription and it'll take you back to your reader. That's a great thing because I'm sure that a lot of customers were like me and didn't want to keep mucking around with doing constant reinstalls. As they came into 2024, they had a focus on AI integration, remote collaboration tools. They started working down that path. And then on a worldwide focus, a global reach, they were building software specific to different areas of the world and using that localized content and tools to be able to help integrate their footprint into these companies And so this was something that was a little bit different, but it's a natural extension of what they were doing before. The third company that we're going to look at in action is Netflix. Now, this is a bit of a big change, right? Because this company originally did DVD rental services, which is now the Redbox version of things. And they've moved to a global streaming platform. They originally didn't have any new content. It was all new names coming from movies that were being released in the market. But they started investing in original content, and they were changing the entertainment industry landscape in doing so. As they change and introduce new things into the market, it affects the world around them. With Netflix, they were fostering a culture of creativity and risk-taking. Because remember, moving from CDs and DVDs to streaming was not normal. And at the time they were making this, they were a leader on this and taking a lot of risk with it because it required a lot of infrastructure that they didn't have. So they were integrating with other places, like I believe they're still using Amazon for some of their services. And so from an impact perspective, they became a dominant force in the entertainment industry, disrupting traditional media and achieving exponential growth. I don't know of anyone who hasn't at least tried Netflix. This year, when they focused on that transition to global streaming as a platform, they were investing this original content, and it was just really making a major change, and it still is. We're seeing content being released direct on Netflix, and it's affecting all the rest of the industry too. We're going to look at implementation. And this is something that I wanted to kind of take a few seconds and just respect exactly how much an implementation of transformational leadership can affect a business. First of all, in the common areas, we have many different things that affect every business. As you're going through any type of a leadership change, you're going to see implementation challenges in these same exact areas. So it's not something that's specific to transformational leadership. That's why I called it common areas. The first one is vision and strategy development. Now, this is setting a clear and inspiring direction for the future of the team. Okay, and it's aligning the team around long-term goals. The second area is employee development. This is where we're fostering a culture of empowerment and personal growth within the team. And we're encouraging the creativity and innovation among the team members that are going to advance the company down its vision. Under change management, which is the third common area, we're leading through transitions and transformations. That's really what we're trying to do. And we're building a resilient and adaptable organizational culture. Okay, so these all affect every business slightly differently, and different leadership styles are going to have different effects on the vision and strategy, on the employee development, on the change management. Meanwhile, there are 6 common steps to implementation that we want to focus on. Number 1 is establishing a clear vision. We already mentioned that, but it's really not just a common area, it's a common step. We want to define a compelling and inspiring vision for the future. We want to communicate this vision clearly and consistently with all stakeholders. The second step is lead by example. Now, this is something that I focused on early in that transition from servant leadership to transformational leadership. You're actually helping to lead yourself. You want to demonstrate the values and behaviors that you expect from your team and do it yourself, and then show the commitment to the vision and lead with the integrity and authenticity, being congruent with the whole concept that you're trying to do, and put that in place. Number 3, empowering employees. This is delegating responsibilities and giving employees the autonomy to make decisions. And also encouraging the innovation and creative problem solving that comes with having empowered employees. Your role as a leader, especially in transformational leadership, is to establish a secondary set of leaders below you to run the day-to-day operations and to run things. And you get a chance to really focus at a very high level, pass this down to that management team. You want to take that vision and communicate to them so that they can build out the structure of how your company is going to achieve that. Encouraging innovation, creative problem solving. Number 4, foster open communication. This is creating an environment where people can be open and honest, where communication is encouraged, right? You're not giving lip service to it. You're actually saying, no, I really do want to hear what you think we can do to improve this situation. And also listening actively to employees' ideas, concerns, and feedbacks, and not just putting up a here's your idea box. That's good, right? It's okay. It's for people that don't want to take a step up and want to be able to make suggestions. But it's really not active. It's a very passive way of getting things done. And in transformational leadership, you can do it, but it's really not encouraged. Number 5, investing in professional development. Now, this is where we want our people to be doing continuous learning and growth on their own. And we want to also offer training programs, workshops, and mentoring to help our employees develop their skills. Number 6, recognize and reward achievements. Acknowledge and celebrate those individual and team successes that come with a group, and then implement a reward system that reinforces positive behavior and outcomes. With those 6, there are 6 more steps that I wanted to add for implementation. Some of these are built into that, and then there are some that kind of focus a little differently. Number 1 is to encourage collaboration and teamwork. That should be fairly obvious. Number 2, set high expectations. Now, that one's not so obvious. In order to get people to study on their own and to work on their own, you actually have to set high expectations that require that. Number 3, provide constructive feedback. It's not a good idea to have destructive feedback. We don't want to break people down. That will break down the whole open communication concept. Number 4, promote a positive work culture. That seems to be fairly obvious. Number 5, embrace change and innovation. Again, this seems obvious, but until you embrace it, nobody else will either. And the last one is to align resources with goals. So when you're putting time, money, and people into things as resources, you want to make sure your goals and your vision, right, which is the overriding thing, that your goals can be met with the appropriate resources that are needed. Looking at the implementation as a summary, we want to start with a clear, inspiring vision. Communicate this vision effectively, creating a shared sense of purpose among the team. Allow leaders to understand their team's needs and encourage collaboration. Promote teamwork and valuing diverse perspectives to drive innovation and solve complex problems. Keep in mind, you do need out-of-the-box thinkers to drive innovation. And the last part was to set high expectations and challenge employees to excel further, which enhance their performance and engagement. This is dealing with the whole implementation of transformational leadership. And in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be covering a little bit more of this concept and dealing with a more hands-on approach. That's the whole idea in the case study or the interview. So looking at this episode, we did our quote from Mahan Khalsa, specific to yellow lights. That's where we get to a point where we have to decide, can we move it forward, which would be a green light, or do we need to stop, and that's a red light. We don't want to make problems and challenges more expensive than they need to be. And then we moved into our business strategy for transformational leadership. We did our review. When does that style work best? Gave you some examples in action. And then the common implementation areas and steps. And finally, the summary. So that's it for today's episode. I want to thank you for your time today. I get a great charge out of being able to do these podcasts. It's great to be able to share knowledge. I'm a natural teacher at heart. I wanted to be one when I was a kid. And so this is an opportunity for me to do some homework, learn for myself more about this, and be able to share what I learn and what I know with you when I can. I dig into the here's how I did it so that everyone can actually see that this is something that we're doing. Transformational leadership, I'm still dabbling with. I'm in the transition into it. I'm using more and more of transformational leadership. I have still a small team, so it's not a requirement yet, but I want to build it in at the foundation so that when I'm ready to start expanding, when clients raise their hand and say, yeah, I want that new service that you're doing, or I want that new program you're building, then I want to be able to build on that quickly and easily. So for the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast, this is Randy Bridges. I wish you the best in your health, your wealth, your family, your business, everything about you. Take care and have a great week.